If you've been watching the tension escalate between Washington and Ottawa, you need to understand something right now. This isn't a negotiation. It's not a trade dispute. It's an ultimatum slamming into an immovable object. For generations, the economic partnership between the US and Canada was the gold standard, seamless, intertwined, and a massive win for both sides. But as of this morning, that partnership is flatlining. Donald Trump just dropped a bombshell, demanding $500 billion from Canada. We're not talking about a decade-long payment plan or a gradual agreement. He wants it immediately. He wants it in the form of trade concessions, access to resources, and what his administration is calling trade balance adjustments. He took to Truth Social and presented it like a past due invoice. It read as if a neighbor suddenly decided you've been shortchanging them on rent for 30 years and slaps you with a bill at the breakfast table. Mark Carney looked at that bill. He read the fine print, and then he did something that sent a tremor through every embassy, trading desk and political strategy room across the Western world. He tore it up, not in some backroom deal, but in a public, strategic, and devastatingly political move. He didn't just say no, he systematically dismantled the demand, and the way he executed it has left Washington completely destabilized. Trump is scrambling, the markets are convulsing, and the talking heads on cable news are missing the real story entirely. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to break down exactly what Trump demanded and why this single moment may have permanently altered the economic landscape of North America. Let's go back to the beginning, because that $500 billion figure wasn't pulled from thin air. It came from a place of sheer frustration. President Trump has been fixated on the trade deficit with Canada for months. He's consistently pointed to Canadian lumber, energy, and metals, claiming America is getting a raw deal. His team compiled a document, really a wish list, that tallied up every so-called imbalance, tariff discrepancy, and market barrier that favors Canadian businesses. They ran the numbers, inflated the timeline, and massaged the data until they landed on $500 billion. That's the number. The White House claims Canada owes this debt for years of unfair practices. Now, any credible economist will tell you this number is pure fiction. Trade imbalances don't work like credit card debt. You can't just mail a bill. But Trump has never been concerned with economic theory. He's concerned with the headline, and the headline was perfect. Trump demands $500 billion from Canada. It played great on Fox News, energized his base, and painted him as the strongman finally holding a freeloader accountable. There was just one massive flaw. He sent that demand to the wrong person. Mark Carney is not Justin Trudeau. He isn't going to offer a polite smile, nod along, and promise to figure it out over a friendly golf game. Carney looked at that $500 billion demand, and he didn't just decline. He stepped to a podium in Ottawa, cool as a surgeon, and delivered a press conference that will be analyzed in political strategy classes for decades. He said the United States is our partner, not our landlord. Canada does not pay tribute. We do not accept invoices from foreign governments, and we will not be intimidated by fictional accounting. That one line hit Washington like a precision strike. Within minutes, it was trending worldwide. Within an hour, European leaders were sharing it. Within 2, the White House press office was scrambling to hold an emergency briefing to respond. And that response, pure chaos. Trump fired back immediately, calling Carney a failed banker and a globalist puppet. He then threatened a staggering 50% tariff on all Canadian goods, not 25% but 50%. He vowed Canada would pay one way or another. But here's the crucial part. While Trump was raging online, the markets were delivering their own verdict, and it was brutal for the White House. Let's look at the evidence. First, the bond market reaction. Within 45 minutes of Carney's address, U.S. Treasury yields shot up. That signals investors pricing in uncertainty. They looked at Trump's $500 billion demand and saw recklessness, not strength. They saw a president willing to torch the world's largest bilateral trade relationship for a fleeting political win. The bond market doesn't lie. It doesn't care about social media posts or rally chants. It prices in risk. And yesterday, it priced in the very real risk that Donald Trump might actually follow through. That sent a chill through every portfolio manager on Wall Street. Second, look at the auto sector. This is where it gets personal for Trump's own voters. The American auto industry isn't strictly American, it's North American. A single vehicle from General Motors can cross the US-Canada border up to 8 times during production. Engines from Ontario, transmissions from Michigan, wiring from Quebec, electronics from Ohio. It's one machine built across two countries. When Trump floated a 50% tariff, Ford's stock tumbled 4% in an afternoon. GM dropped 3.5%. Stellantis, which owns Chrysler, fell 5%. The Detroit automakers weren't panicking about Canada, they were panicking about their own survival. Slap a 50% tax on that border, and you don't cripple Ottawa. You cripple Detroit. You cripple Ottawa. You wipe out small parts suppliers in Indiana and Wisconsin that rely on this cross-border flow. We're hearing that CEOs from all three automakers demanded emergency calls with the White House. They were told the president was unavailable. He was on Truth Social, hurling insults while his own industrial base was in flames. Third, consider the energy card. This is the one that should worry every American watching. Canada supplies more energy to the US than any other nation, more than Saudi Arabia, more than all of OPEC put together. The pipelines fueling the Midwest, the refineries in Texas and Louisiana that process heavy crude, the natural gas heating homes in Minnesota and Wisconsin, it all comes from Canada. 60% of US crude imports flow south from Alberta. When Carney gave that press conference, he didn't need to mention energy. He said one sentence that every energy trader instantly understood. Canada will ensure its resources serve its national interest first. That's it. That's all it took. Within 90 minutes, West Texas Intermediate crude jumped $6 a barrel. Natural gas futures soared. Energy stocks on the TSX in Toronto surged while their US counterparts wavered. Carney didn't threaten to turn off the taps. He didn't have to. He simply reminded the world that he could, and the market did the rest. That's what you get for demanding $500 billion from the country that powers your economy, a gas price spike that punishes voters in every swing state. Fourth, look at the international response. This is perhaps the most alarming part for Washington. While Trump was swinging at Ottawa, the rest of the world was picking up the phone. Sources in Brussels say European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called Carney within 3 hours. The UK Prime Minister's office issued a statement expressing deep concern about unilateral demands that undermine the international order. Japan's Trade Ministry put out a one-line statement that spoke volumes. Japan stands with its partners who uphold multilateral trade principles. Do you see what just happened? Trump demanded $500 billion from Canada, and the entire developed world lined up behind Ottawa. Not Washington, behind Ottawa. Carney didn't just reject the demand, he used it as a recruiting tool. He turned Trump's overreach into a coalition. Every country that's ever felt the sting of a Trump tariff, every nation labeled a freeloader, watched Carney stand firm and thought the same thing. If Canada can say no, maybe we can too. Trump wanted to isolate Canada. Instead, he isolated himself. This is the strategic blunder historians will study. You don't make a demand of this magnitude unless you're certain the other side will crumble. And Trump was certain, because that's how it's always worked. He threatens, they cave, he wins. But Carney broke the cycle. He snapped the playbook in two. Now Trump is standing in the rubble of his own strategy, trying to figure out what hit him. So let's talk about why Carney is so different. Mark Carney isn't a traditional politician. He didn't rise through the ranks by making empty promises. He ran central banks. He steered the Bank of Canada through the 2008 financial crisis, the only G7 country with 0 bank failures. He ran the Bank of England through the chaos of Brexit. This is someone who has sat across from the world's most powerful financial minds and outmaneuvered them. He doesn't think in tweets, he thinks in systems. He doesn't react to threats. He models them, runs scenarios, stress tests outcomes, and then acts. When Trump's $500 billion demand landed, Carney didn't panic. Sources say he spent 4 hours locked in a room with his economic team. They modeled every possible US retaliation, identified every pressure point, and built a response designed to inflict maximum strategic damage with minimal economic pain for Canada. That's not politics, that's financial warfare. And Carney is better at it than anyone currently in the White House. Look at his tactical choices. He didn't announce sweeping tariffs that would hurt Canadian markets. Instead, he announced strategic, targeted measures aimed at specific sectors in specific US states. He targeted bourbon from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell's home state. He targeted farm equipment from Iowa. He targeted tech components from Texas. Every single target was chosen not for its economic impact on Canada, but for its political impact on Republican senators and representatives. He's not fighting the US economy. He's fighting the Republican caucus. He knows Trump can only maintain this fight if his party stays united. so he's making it politically impossible for them to do so. Within 24 hours, 3 Republican senators issued statements calling for dialogue. That's DC code for Mr. President, you're killing us. Carney is dismantling Trump's coalition, one congressional district at a time, armed with nothing but a smile and a spreadsheet. Now here's where this gets dangerously real for the average American. This isn't just a story about political egos. This is about your finances. The $500 billion demand was supposed to make America richer. Instead, it's making everything more expensive. Let's walk through the chain reaction. First, the tariff threat creates uncertainty. Uncertainty makes businesses freeze investment. Frozen investment means fewer jobs, fewer raises, and less growth. Second, the energy price spike hits transportation. Everything you buy travels by truck. Trucks run on diesel. Diesel comes from crude oil, Canadian crude oil. Higher energy costs mean higher shipping costs, which means higher prices on every single shelf in America. Third, the auto sector disruption hits the industrial heartland. Michigan, Ohio, Indiana. These are swing states. These are the voters Trump promised to protect. And they are the first to feel the pain when parts stop flowing across the Ambassador Bridge. We're hearing from plant managers in Detroit who have less than 2 weeks of inventory. After that, the assembly lines go silent, workers go home, and the layoff notices go out. This isn't a hypothetical. This is happening right now. The clock is ticking, and with every hour this standoff continues, the damage multiplies. So, where do we go from here? I see 3 possible paths. Path 1, the prolonged standoff. Trump imposes the tariffs. Carney retaliates with surgical precision. Both sides dig in. The border slows to a crawl. Prices rise. The economy wobbles. Eventually, after months of pain, corporate America forces a deal. Congress steps in, and a patchwork solution is found. It won't be pretty, but it will stop the bleeding. This is the most likely outcome. Path 2, the downward spiral. Trump sees Carney's retaliation and completely loses his temper. He invokes emergency powers, tries to block Canadian energy imports, threatens to pull out of NATO, and sends troops to the border as a show of force. Canada activates emergency plans with the EU and pivots its energy exports to Asia. This triggers a full-blown continental economic crisis. Gas at $7 a gallon, the stock market crashing 20%. We're talking about a recession sparked by one man's refusal to back down from a number he invented. It sounds extreme, but with this president, extreme is the new normal. Path 3, the quiet retreat. Someone in the White House, maybe the Treasury Secretary, maybe a back channel, quietly reaches out to Ottawa. They negotiate a face-saving deal. Trump gets to claim a win. Carney preserves Canada's sovereignty. Both sides declare victory. Markets calm down, and we all pretend it never happened. I hope for this outcome, but I don't believe Trump's ego allows for quiet retreats. He drew the line at $500 billion. He said it publicly, repeatedly. Walking that back, even quietly, would require an admission of error. And Donald Trump doesn't do admissions. He doubles down. He always doubles down. That's what makes this moment so terrifying. We're watching 2 leaders play chicken with the most important trade relationship on the planet. One is screaming, swerving, and blaring his horn. The other has both hands on the wheel, eyes fixed forward, cruise control on, and a stack of economic data on the passenger seat, telling him exactly how much runway he has left. Carney knows the math. He knows Canada will take damage. He's accepted that. But he also knows the US will take more, because America built its economy on the assumption that Canada would always be there. Cheap energy, reliable parts, open markets, a stable neighbor. Take that away, and the American economic model doesn't just stumble, it breaks. That's the leverage Carney holds, and he knows exactly how to use it. So here we are. The $500 billion demand is on the table. Carney has publicly rejected it. Markets are in turmoil. The auto sector is panicking. Energy prices are spiking. Republican senators are sweating. European allies are rallying behind Ottawa. And the President of the United States is on social media, calling the Prime Minister of Canada names. This is the current state of the most critical alliance in North American history. This is what happens when you treat your closest friend like a debtor, when you send an invoice to a sovereign nation and expect them to just pay up. Carney proved something yesterday that Washington hasn't heard in a very long time. No, 1 word, 2 letters, and it shook the most powerful government on earth. The question now isn't whether this will hurt. It will. The question is who bleeds more. And right now, the smart money, The real institutional money is betting on Carney, not because Canada is stronger, it's not, but because Carney is smarter. And in a fight between brute force and precision, precision wins every single time. Do you think Trump will blink? Did Carney overplay his hand? Or is this the moment the world realized you can stand up to the US and survive? Drop your opinion in the comments. I read them all. And if you want to know what happens when the markets open tomorrow, and trust me, the reaction will be violent, make sure you're subscribed and have the notification bell on. This story is moving faster than anything I've covered in years. The $500 billion question is on the table, and the answer just changed everything. Don't blink.